peoples, welcome to the new couch. I think this might be the first video I've actually done in the new house. It is still a mess. There is still stuff everywhere, as you can see in the background. This is actually one of the better areas of the house. We're progressing slowly. It's like we start doing one room, it gets almost done, and then we start doing another room and all the stuff gets switched about and there's mess everywhere. But I have not filmed anywhere near as much as normal, mainly just because I'm constantly doing little things. Like, it's not as if I can do a full vlog of a full day of just unpacking things. It's like 5 minutes here and there spread throughout really crazy days. Uni started, everything is crazy at the moment. We're also going to court, which I will probably put in its own vlog. Oh, I don't know if we're going to court, but there's legal issues occurring at the moment, which is very stressful and taking up a lot of my mind. But we move on. That was a little update, and now into the video. Mika is coming over today with Millie for Millie's birthday, so I gotta get this done real quick. I've decided I'm naming it a vlog. It's not gonna be a vlog, it's gonna be a sit down video. Isn't it, sir? But it's just a bunch of questions, some of which I took from places, some of which I made up myself. All sorts of questions from all around the world, not the world, I don't know, all around the area, about girls and being a girl and girl talk, if that makes sense. I don't know what sort of order this is in, if it's even in an order. I just wrote it down really quickly. Let's just get straight into it. You've got 3 cheese balls left. It's like, no I don't, Mum. I've only got 2, see? Were you born female? As far as I know, yes, I was born female. At least I looked female, and wait, of course I'm female. I had a kid. Yes, I was born female. I still classify myself as female. I have a kid, so obviously what I looked like at birth was my actual gender, because I could procreate this thing over here and birth it. When and where did you get your first period? When was year 8. I went to a lot of primary schools because we moved around a little bit. I went to... Oh, more cheese balls, 1 second. I had a lot of nightmares. Like, moving was really hard for me when we moved from the Pilbara up to Perth. So I had a lot of dramas with moving schools and moving house and moving so far away from all my friends. I also was really socially anxious my entire life. Thus the reason I started YouTube, or one of the many reasons. This was back when year 7 was the end of primary school. When you started high school in year 8, it's now changed. But whatever, come the end of year 7, actually I think it was year 6, I got accepted into the GATE program at Governor Stirling Senior High School, which is just like the academic fancy class that you just go into. It's like a smaller classroom. You stay with that class throughout 8, 9 and 10, so that you can really focus on learning and learn more, pretty much. Whether we actually did or not is another question, but anyway. No water. But basically my primary school was K to 12, so kindy to year 12. You basically stayed in that school your entire school life. So everyone I knew stayed in that school. I was one of the only people that left, and I had to move to a school that was about half an hour away. I went from sort of a rural town to more city. The school I went to was high school, but there was only like 2 primary schools that fed into it. So even though it was just high school and everyone was just starting at the high school for the first time, everyone knew each other except me. I was the only one from my primary school that was going to that high school. There was one other girl in the year above me from my primary school. So she wasn't even in my year, and she was the only other person in the entire school that went to my primary school. So I knew no one. As you can imagine, it was very stressful for a very socially impaired, anxious person. I was also going through my mum and dad. That was like when mum and dad were first starting their divorce. They like fully split about halfway through year 8. So they were starting to do the massive issues in the house. around then as well, so it was a really stressful time for me. And a couple of weeks in, I had my first ever phys ed lesson, and we were going down to the river because Governor Stirling, well, it is right next to the river, but at this point it was being built, so we were like a couple of k's from the river at that point, at a different campus for a bit, but it was near a river. So we were going in our swimsuits down to the river to go paddle on some boats or something. I went to get changed into my swimsuit and discovered my period for the first time. That was terrifying. I didn't really know much about periods. I was the oldest child. Mum hadn't really talked to me about them yet. I'd been given a book, but I hadn't really looked at it. It freaked me out because in year 5 we were taught about periods, and it was like we went into full depth in year 5, and they were like, this is how you label the parts of a male's anatomy, and I was like, ew. I was year 5. I was like, ew, I'm not doing this. I refuse to do this. This is not cool. So I hadn't really learned anything about it. I was really nervous. I knew what it was, but I didn't know what to do, and like, it was scary. And I was also in bathers. So, but yeah, so that was when and where I got my first period, and it was absolutely terrifying. And I just want to say about my second time I got my period. Obviously, I had friends in primary school, and I sort of lost most of them when I went into high school, just because I went to school half an hour away from them, and like they stayed in their groups and I had to find new groups, and we just lost contact. My best friend in primary school, I was still close with her at the beginning of high school, obviously. No, I just finished my period. It had gone for 7 days. My second ever period had gone for 7 days, and it had just finished, and I was like, yay, awesome, that's great. It then started again very heavily at day 10, I think, and went to day 14. There's a little insight into all my problems I would later have with my period. She hadn't started her period yet. She was an only child, and her mother, she was a surprise child. Her mum thought she'd hit menopause when she had a child. So obviously her mum hadn't had a period for a long time. So there was like nothing. And I was having a heavy period. I'm pretty sure I had to ring mum up and ask mum to come get me because it was really bad. But that was my first and second period story. Moving on, because that was one question. Who did you tell first when you got your period? I told my mum. It just wasn't something I shared, especially in the beginning. I was bawling my eyes out, crying. I was really nervous to tell her. Do you have any embarrassing period stories? Embarrassing period stories. I actually have, like, the most embarrassing story of my life is probably a period story. So it was still hot, middle-ish of summer, towards the end of summer in Australia. And that best friend I was talking about had a birthday party, and she lives on a farm, has a big dam that we all swim in. We had like a flying fox from some scaffolding into the dam. So fun. Don't know if you guys can see, but he's made a puddle on his high chair from his water, and he's now mopping it with his sleeve. But he's having fun, so whatever. I had a pad on. I never used a tampon, and I didn't know what pads did when they got really wet. So I went into the dam with my pad on because we basically went down to the dam and we weren't going to go swimming, and then everyone was like, oh, come on, let's just go. And I hadn't changed into bathers. I wasn't going to go swimming. I wasn't swimming originally, and then everyone was like, come on, Storm, come on, Storm. I went in and my pad swelled up so big I couldn't get out of the water. I felt so embarrassed that I obviously wasn't going to get out the water. Swam off from everyone a bit. It was like murky water, which was good. And I pulled my pad out, marked a tree so I could come back later, and in the under the water I buried my pad in the dirt, and all was well. I was happy. I was like, oh, I did it, it's all good. About half an hour later, we also had little kayaks and stuff, and there was 2 girls out on the kayak, and they're like, oh, what's that? My pad had unburied itself somehow, and it had floated to the middle of the dam and was just floating there. So I like swam so fast out to try and grab it, and I was so embarrassed and it was so gross, and I honestly blanked out how I got rid of it or what happened. I know that one of my friends figured out what it was, and I told her the story, and honestly the most embarrassing moment of my life. Pads or tampons? Pads. I had a lot of problems with tampons for a long time. It was in Queensland that I first succeeded at using a tampon. So I would have been like 16. There was one point where we were going out with family and we were possibly going swimming. So I tried a tampon, and we got 10 minutes into the drive and It was burning so bad. I was in tears, like sitting in the back seat. I didn't even tell people I was on my period, so I couldn't explain to people why I was like bursting into tears. We had to pull up to a random Kmart, go into the shops and take it out and buy pads. Every time I managed to actually get the tampon into the correct spot so it wasn't uncomfortable and painful to just sit in there, after like 10-20 minutes it just started burning. I finally figured out it was tampons. I don't know if there was something in them, but I started using another brand and it didn't do it, or it didn't do it as much, so I could use them a bit, and that's when I discovered it in Queensland because I used a different brand. But I still am like traumatized from using them in the past, so I try not to use them as much. And I also haven't had my period for like 6 years or something drastic, because I have the Implanon in and it stops me from getting my period. So I had that in for like 2 years, took it out to deal with endometriosis and surgery, had a baby, now it's back in again. Haven't really had many periods for a while, but yeah, definitely pads over tampons. Are your cycles regular? No, they have never been regular. The most regular they'd ever been was right after I had laparoscopy to get out some endometrial cysts and stuff in my uterus, and I had a period. It was like 30 days, 31 days, 32 days, 60 something days, but the like 3 in a row that were 30 days was the closest I've ever been to regular. Usually it'll be like 1 month, 2 months, somewhere in between. Some weeks it'll only go for 7 days, other times it'll go for 14 days. Like, they've never been regular in any way, shape or form. Have you tried a menstrual cup? No, I haven't. I only really found out about them when I was broke, and then by the time I was like, oh, I really want to try these, I had the Implanon in and I just haven't had a period since. Maybe when we're trying for our second child, if I get the Implanon out and we don't get pregnant straight away, if I'm having my period a few times, I might try the Implanon. I might try the menstrual cup because I really want to try it. Okay, my battery died. I'm back. I've had some chocolate, so if there's chocolate in my teeth, that's why. What is happening here? I am very, very zoomed in on my face. Someone has been playing with my phone. I wonder who that might have been. I just look at my phone, it's like my nose. Up what? Your arm. Yeah. Oh, is that so? Are you on birth control? What one? I'm on Implanon. Come here, you little rat bag. I tried it about the same time as a friend of mine, but she had like all the negatives. I had all the positives. I don't get my period on it. I don't seem to, I mean, if you guys have seen my like mental health updates, you know that I had depression and all the bad stuff before being on Implanon, so I didn't notice a drastic change in that. Well, I don't know if I've noticed weight gain. That's one thing everyone talks about, but I am sitting at like a higher weight than I used to be. Like, I used to always be about 60 kilos, and then like 58 would be me comfortable, and I wanted to get down to like 56. But like now, especially since having him, I sit around 62, and like I don't think I've dropped to 60 forever. Probably if I was like really trying, I'd aim for 58 to 60, but I just don't think I would even aim as low as I used to just sit, you know. Don't touch it. Hi guys. I'm on Implanon. It's working really well for me. What do you hate about being female? What don't I hate? I hate periods. You gotta go through monthly pain. I don't know if like some girls don't get as much pain, but I've always been used to pain because I've always had severe pain every month or whenever my period decided to show up. And off my period, I still got pain, and like, no one wants to have blood gushing out of their private areas. It's just not nice. I don't like periods. And yeah. What do you love about being female? This thing! And the ability to create this thing, I've decided. Yeah, I like the whole fact that I can mother. Even though I really did not enjoy pregnancy, I love the fact that I could get pregnant, and I got pregnant, and like I grew this thing, this wriggly thing. That's what I like about being female. If you could give your past self a pep talk about female issues, what would you say? You guys are slowly going to get higher and higher, so welcome to life with a toddler. You need to trust your instincts. above all else, if you think there's something wrong, there's something wrong. If you think there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. Like, trust yourself. You know your body better than anyone. For example, I knew there was something wrong with my cycles and my body. And there was. But it took almost a decade for everyone else to figure that out. Doctors and whatnot. And also, once I had Hayden, the same advice applied. Like, instincts have been around for a while. I don't know how to word this, but just trust your instincts and enjoy being a female, even though it sucks. Can you tell when your period is coming? What are your PMS symptoms? I sometimes could tell when my period was coming, sometimes couldn't. It's been a while since I got my period, so a bit rusty on these details. I'm going to read this the way I wrote it. If you could choose your to be female or male, which would be? I think I was saying if I could go back and choose to be born a female or a male, which would I be? And that's really hard. I used to always be like male. I always wanted to be a male. I don't want to deal with the symptoms of being a female. Oh, Jesus. Hi. Yeah. But now I have him and I'm like, oh, I guess it'd still be male. Like, I hated pregnancy. It really wasn't fun. I loved tiny little bits of it, and now it's like I just remember those really loving, amazing moments. And I'm starting to forget all the terrible stuff. Really, I didn't like pregnancy, and pregnancy was terrible. But it produced this thing, and now that I'm thinking about it, if I was a male and didn't ever, like, have to go through the hard bits and then just got this thing at the end, that would be amazing. Like, yeah, I'd just be male. As long as I had kids at some point, I'd be male, 100%. Females are just, it's too hard to be female. What tips and tricks do you have for anyone dealing with their monthlies? I don't know. I never dealt with my monthlies. I just suffered through them. If you're on the end of your cycle or you have a light cycle, and you're not good at tampons like me, you can sometimes get away with just wearing 2 pairs of 2 pairs of bikini bottoms and some boardies. Sleep with a towel underneath you. To save your mattress and your bed sheets, just sleep on a towel for 3. When should kids be told about periods? Not at year 5. Oh, actually, okay, I think kids should be told about periods and be told about sex in completely different times. When I was taught sex ed for the first time, I was in year 5, so I was too little, and they paired it in with like learning the anatomy of a male parts and female parts and what is sex and how to use condoms, and there was like no focus on periods. So I think it's not when, but more like how. But don't go into teaching kids anatomy when you haven't even taught them like basic anatomy. But it should be period talk, and then like the rest of it, not all bunched in together. There should be a focus on periods and puberty and like what kids go through first. And honestly, learning about sex in year 5 put me off my periods because we learned about it at the same time and I thought they were related, you know, and sex was always a bad thing at that age. It was always ew and only for adults and you shouldn't do it, and you know what I mean? And then it's like you get your period and you feel terrible because it was lumped in with this taboo thing that you shouldn't do. Do you think there should be sanitary bins in primary school bathrooms? Of course I do. But yeah, it is a hard question because like I always thought yes, but now that I think about it, it's like imagine kindy kids with a bin that opens and shuts in a toilet. So, interesting. What do you think could change in the world and your society to make it more female friendly? More access or free or cheaper access to sanitary items? I don't know if it's just because I had a heavy flow and my periods went for 10 days usually. So it was like I would go through, and they were heavy, so it was like I would go through 2 to 3 packs of pads every period. And yeah, I sometimes skipped a month and had irregular periods, but like that's still 2 to 3 packs every 1.5 months. Access to those things should be a lot cheaper for anyone. Like you can get free condoms in places, but I've never really seen free pads and free tampons around, and make women's periods less taboo of a topic. What do you do with your body hair down there? At the moment, not much. I originally did nothing, and then obviously I started wearing bikinis a bit more, or just like shorts a bit more, and then I would have to just quickly shave the top, but then the hair got annoying. because it just gets annoying. It's like I was a pad person, so pads and hair, when they get stuck together and you have to take the pad off, it's not good. So I started trying to shave everything down there, which I sort of liked, but then I discovered that my skin is super sensitive and the hair was sort of protecting the skin from the pad, and I started getting like rashes and stuff. But then I stopped getting my period, and so I just shaved it down there for ages. I got a really bad ingrown hair and went to the doctor, and she was like, have you tried waxing? So I had my first Brazilian, and no, not good. I'm contemplating trying it again now that I wax like my legs and armpits, and like I'm more comfortable with waxing, and just, I've birthed something, so it can't be that bad. I still usually try to keep everything clear down there just because I like it better. When you get really pregnant and you can't see what you're doing beyond your belly and you end up cutting yourself a bazillion times down there, it's like that's when you start to give up. What are you doing? I've got one more question. When did you hit puberty? How did you know you'd hit puberty? I mean, for girls it's like you hit puberty but it's not certain, and then you get a period and it's like, oh yeah, definitely hit that. There's 2 times I can remember. One was I was the sort of girl that just ran around without a shirt. Like I was a very tomboy. I was a kid, so it was like normal to just run around without a shirt. Our nipples were the same as everyone else's nipples at that age. And then mine weren't suddenly. My dad said to my mum, do you want to start trying to make Storm wear a shirt maybe, because she's growing a bit down there. Sit down video has now ended. But yeah, so that was like the first time I noticed, and then I also was swimming and I noticed like tiny little baby hairs on my armpits, and I was like, why is there hairs on my armpits? Because obviously mum shaved, and like I just thought men had hairy armpits and I just hadn't thought about it. So yeah, that was like the 2 things that made me know I was going through puberty. I was in primary school at that point, towards the end of primary school, and then as I said earlier, I got my period at the very beginning of high school. Anyway, someone is getting really grumpy, so I'm going to end the video. Are you ready to end the video, sir? Say thanks for watching, peoples. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you'd like to see more videos, and we'll see you in the next video. And this is about to get real girl talky because someone is like about to pull my shirt down. Bye, peoples.